Here we go. Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to see you all. I see some really good friends of ours. Hi, Carol. My name is Gloria Kwaku. I serve as your Chief Equity, Engagement and Grants Officer here at the Community Foundation of Tompkins County. We've been doing these Let's Talk events since COVID times in 2020. It started off as just a way for the community to stay connected and find out what's going on with our community organizations, get updates from our organizations, and it just kind of grew, and it was a hit, and people still wanted to get together and learn more about organizations. I took over this role and started with the Community Foundation in 2022. And this is one of the things that I love about my job, is that I get to contact people like Alexis and say, Alexis, let us know what is happening at the Traditional Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Healing. What are some updates that, some things that you guys have been working on? And so I am just so excited to be here. So good afternoon. You can be on camera or off camera. It's completely up to you. We are very flexible. It is such an honor to welcome our guest today. I love Alexis from the Traditional Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Healing. We at the Community Foundation, we deeply believe in the celebration of all cultures, and we hold a special place for honoring the rich traditions, knowledge, and resilience of Indigenous peoples. And our commitment to DEI to us isn't just about words. It's about embracing the humanity that connects us all and recognizing the unique contributions of every culture within our community. We are a wonderful and beautiful tapestry of so many cultures, and that is what I love about where we live in Tompkins County. Today, we have the opportunity to learn from a tradition that predates us all, predates me, predates you, one that teaches harmony, respect, and healing, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. As we listen and learn today, let us remain mindful of the importance of understanding and honoring Indigenous wisdom as a vital part of our shared journey toward equity and justice. Please join me in welcoming Alexis from the Traditional Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Healing, whose presence here reminds us of the power of kindness, compassion, and cultural unity. I'm going to read Alexis's bio. Let's see. Born in unceded Lipan Apache, and Alexis, if I say anything wrong, please interrupt me and tell me I'm saying it wrong. Lipan Apache and Coahuiltecan territories.
It is Lipan Apache and Coahuiltecan.
Okay. Known as Yanawana, Alexis was adopted at birth and grew up in Western and Central New York. She attended Ithaca College, Go Blue, and graduated with a Bachelor of Music in Composition in 2012. After graduating, she was quickly absorbed into the community and embarked on a path of exploration that led her back to nature and her Indigenous roots, Guani, Taino, Coahuiltecan. I know I said it wrong, and I mean no disrespect. I am so sorry. Guachichil and Black. She says, for the last few years, I have cultivated a deeper relationship with seeds, birth work, health, and the land through her traditional Indigenous culture. I believe that through a harmonious relationship with nature, we can begin to restore equilibrium as individuals and as a human collective. She is a birth worker, an herbalist, a seed keeper, food sovereignty advocate, music teacher. She's a director and co-founder of the Traditional Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Healing. I had the pleasure of getting to work with Alexis on her grant application, and she is a true reflection of the breadth and fabric of the organization that she's founded. As we listen today, I encourage each of you to reflect on this question. How can we, in our own lives and within our community, actively support and uplift Indigenous voices, traditions, and knowledge as part of our commitment to a more just and inclusive future? So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Alexis. And Alexis is going to share her screen and provide a PowerPoint for us. Thank you so much, Alexis, for joining us. And again, welcome and thank you to you all for joining. So,
Greetings. Sorry, I have my own um brief technical
that's okay. So while Alexis is figuring that out, if you do have specific questions, please feel free to just put your questions in the chat. At the end, it's going to be open for questions, just like an open dialogue, Q&A, and discussion with Alexis. So as questions do come up, please feel free to put them in the chat.
So I think it might be a little bit quicker, Gloria, if I send you
Yes.
that presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Let me just get that. And yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody for coming today, and it's really beautiful to see like such a large group representing our community in Ithaca and Tompkins County. And yeah, I it's really awesome to be speaking to like a larger group of people. That's also I would presume that we're here in this space because of our connection to the Community Foundation, which, from my perspective and experience, is also representative of our commitment to continuing to grow our community. Um, and so I think that this is a really cool way to continue to educate our community about each and every one of our projects. And this opportunity is really awesome. And I'm excited to be a part of it, and to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing. Um, so Gloria, I don't know if you got that email yet.
Not yet. Okay, boom, here it is. Let's see. All right, give me just a second while I pull it up.
Um, and so, yeah, I'll just, say whenever we need to go to the next slide. It's, I think, 6 slides total.
Yep.
Um, And I will do my best, everybody, to keep it as brief as possible. The work that we've been doing is founded on um, cumulative years of experience and vision, of not just myself, but one of our early co-founders. His name was Joe Soto, and he passed a little bit over a year and a half ago. And he had been an active part of this community with his late wife as well, who has passed, Robin Soto. And they did a lot within the Ithaca community. And so I learned a lot about what had already been pre-existing, as far as relationships between us, our small Taino community, the Haudenosaunee community, and many lineages before that of teachers as well. So while the Traditional Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Healing, and we also refer to ourselves as TCIC, which is the acronym TCIKH. the work that we do represents those who came before us, right? So we're constantly building on the teachers of our own teachers as well. Um, and so our first slide is obviously a picture, well, maybe not obvious, but a photo of some corn. And this corn is in its mid-growth cycle. So it's still in its early stages and not quite in even the flowering stage. And as you see, there's this really beautiful image here. And that is a Taino artist's representation of one of our sacred deities. Her name is Atabe. And she represents all things Mother Earth. So she is like our Earth Mother. We commissioned him to create this image just for our organization of her holding the corn as well, because that is not typically how she is depicted. But that is something that the corn is part of our vision and our direction and our mission. And it is a food and a seed that has provided sustenance for Indigenous peoples on this hemisphere for thousands and thousands of years. So our work is guided by the corn and very much so devoted to the corn. Next slide. So, I would love to share our mission and vision for the Indigenous Center, right? So, our mission is the traditional center for Indigenous knowledge and healing revitalizes and preserves traditional Indigenous culture through ancestral knowledge. The vision of our organization is we are constantly working towards a sustainable and autonomous matrilineal community living in accordance with natural law. And so I know, and this is part of our work as an organization is to help the community understand in it of itself, like what this mission and vision means, because a lot of the language in it isn't necessarily common understandings or common concepts. So I'm just going to start with a few things. About it that will help continue to kind of unravel through this brief presentation of who we are. So matrilineal is similar maybe as some might people understand to matriarch. So matrilineal societies are run and aligned with the maternal and the females in the community, the people who identify as women in the community. And so this means that the point of arrival and the point of departure is within the understanding that women are the people that bring life into the world, which is understood as being very sacred and to be highly respected and honored. And so the roles of matrilineal societies are focused around that, you know, what gives life and brings life into the community and helping people to have a sense of respect for those parts of our community, which is not limited to just women. Um, and our focus is on revitalizing and preserving, uplifting, practicing, teaching, all of those things revolving around that. And so we also say that we provide culturally sensitive and relevant programs, creating support systems to heal intergenerational trauma for people who've been oppressed by colonization. So while, you know, the community we come from, the community that we align our work with, and primarily support is Indigenous communities. We are not exclusively involved in those communities, and all of our workshops, all of the materials that we have around educating people is for everybody. It is an inclusive system that we are working towards, mainly because this is how we understand and respect humanity, right? So we have to practice what we preach. Um, and also acknowledging that um, we all have been impacted by trauma. So even though Indigenous peoples have been subject to many millennium of, I mean, different types of oppression and colonization, because um, the the Columbus colonization isn't the first types of colonizations that's happened in civilizations, right? It's much more complex than that. And we recognize that, right? So we try to keep open conversations around this so everybody feels included and we can begin discussing trauma and healing on an inclusive basis, right? Although we uplift and acknowledge the fact that we are here in the United States, and the formation of this country has been on the backs of Indigenous people, and with stolen and exploited labor from Africa, right? And so the other aspect of this is understanding that all of our relations, right? So our kinship system isn't just limited to human, right? Our understanding is that nature is all encompassing, and it is the natural world, and our relationship to it is the same as our human to human relationships. Um, and just a little bit of a background, our founding vision, is about you know, we wanted to give back to the community, right? So, our understandings come from a small family, a small community that has lived on an off-grid homestead for decades, right? I've been a part of that for a little bit, but it's not just me. And so when we start living off-grid, our understanding of the world changes, right? We understand on a very real level, like what water conservation means, what energy conservation means, and what food sustainability and sovereignty actually means, right? Being able to provide for ourselves, and what food storage looks like. So all of these things are very practical for us and our way of living. And we cherish it and understand that the teachings from it are invaluable. So our founding vision comes from a very simple way of life and wanting to expand upon that and give back to the community to be able to provide a way and a means to educate people on healthy living. Next slide.
So just really quick, I'm gonna see if there's a way that I can make this bigger, and I didn't
Sure.
want to do it while you were talking,
No
just in
problem.
case if I messed it up. Let's see, is that it? Single full screen mode. There we go.
Oh, hey.
Okay, there we go. All right, next slide. Boom.
Sweet. So, there's a lot of questions sometimes that we get about, like, okay, I see you guys are doing all this work around reproductive justice and farming and seeds, and land access. Like, how is it all related, And for us as, Indigenous folks, it's like just a way of life to us, right? It makes sense. And so a lot of our work, right, has been to be able to kind of decipher what is our teachings in a way that the larger communities can understand them, right? And so we came up with this little slogan, right? Seeds back, birth back, land back, because at this point land back has become like a very prominent and a popular phrase in the Indigenous communities for yeah, getting land back. And there's many different ways we can do that. And so the primary ways that TSIC does that is through seeds. So literally, like, our seeds that we use to grow our Indigenous heirloom crops, which are corn, beans, squash, amaranth. There's different medicinal flowers, and there's other foods, right? That's not just those things, but those are real subsistence crops. Um, and through birth autonomy and body autonomy. And so when we're advocating for reproductive justice, one of the first places that we need to start, and that a lot of people I think are at right now, is understanding that everybody has their right over their body, like baseline, like I say what happens to my body, and this helps create conversations around what consent really means. And this is how we do our work, and this is how we plan to empower and mobilize the next generations of change makers. And doing this through practice, right? Through actually growing food, teaching how to grow food, educating around agricultural, education, like such as pollination, seed saving, simple knowledge around that, as well as sharing resources on birth autonomy, which includes reproductive health, reproductive justice, as well as working towards creating more land access. And this has been a lot of work for us. And I don't think any of us through the organization really anticipated our vision to be so um, meaningful, where we have been constantly working towards this for the last like 5 years now. um and sometimes it feels like the majority of our work is like on a volunteer basis, right? Like the nonprofit movement, organizing community work, it never ends, right? So like those office hours, whatever they are, like that's just to tell people when you're available. But it's constant. It's what really feeds our spirit in this, and constantly finding ways to bring it to our community, to bring it to the people. And it's been a lot, right? And so there's a lot of language here. So I will read from some of it because it's really hard to sum up, and we still work on this, right? So what is the connection of seed sovereignty to birth autonomy? Like, why seed sovereignty? A lot of people have heard of food sovereignty. Seed sovereignty takes it like to the next level. Like we're actually working to maintain the genetic diversity of our indigenous seeds. So we see our seeds as the lineages, right? So as there are many different nations and tribes of indigenous people, the same exists for our seeds. Um, so we learn about the value of life, our autonomy, our stories, and our lineal legacy through our seeds. We take care of them and we learn about our interconnectedness with nature, right? You can't grow seeds and not understand how, the impacts of drought, rain, soil health, and fertility impact our food and our nutrition, right? So when I think of soil fertility, I'm also thinking about, womb health, right? Our uteruses and our endometrial linings in our bodies, our gut health, and all of these different systems as well that come together to support, reproduction in our bodies, as well as just general health and nutrition. So we create different relationships with our birth givers, and taking care of our birthing traditions, right? So the more that we take care of our seeds and our food systems, the more that we understand how to take care of our birth givers and those traditions around bringing life into this world. They are not separate. And so in order to continue to break the perpetuation of colonial violence, which includes lateral violence, right? So not only have we, as brown folks, been subject to violence from our oppressors, we have internalized that, and we experience that within our communities. And I say that in that way because that also reflects sometimes our internal voices of self-worth, right? When we have bad days and start saying like, oh, I should have done it this way, or like shame on me for thinking that. Like that's also violent ways of thinking about ourselves. That is also included in the category of lateral violence, right? Um, it's necessary to reconnect to our ancestral foods. So now, how we're eating, right, reflects who we are. Like the old saying of what you eat is what you are is true. And so when we start working towards our taking in more of our ancestral foods, it awakens an ancestral memory that's very real. So we teach all of these things through reproductive justice and traditional autonomous birth practices. Um, it's very connected to us in the sense where our first foods immediately are reflected in our birthing traditions, right? So milk. Um, And the way that we are encompassing all of this is within Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge. So our land-based practices and our birth practices all fall under that category. And we have started to reframe our narrative as an organization to be working towards Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge practices, education through land stewardship and workshops. Next slide. So one of the things that we have done, because when we started doing this work as a nonprofit, because we were fiscally sponsored by the village at Ithaca, thank you, the village. Our goal was to, at the start, work towards the dismantling of the nonprofit industrial complex, which is really a whole other conversation. But our intention was to begin creating a foundation for our organizational development through our understanding of the world, which is we call our cosmology. And at its basis, indigenous cosmologies are always related to nature and our place within it, right? So the way we have framed it is that within the middle of our cosmology is autonomy, right? We have, as humans, our free will, and also our ability to practice our free will, but also understanding that everything in nature has its own directions, right? Like we can't control water, we can't control fire, but what we can do is work with them, right? Um, and so we understand our autonomy is like a central fire. So a lot of people understand like fire, right? Like we love hanging around fires like in our backyards, cooking food over fires, and also fires can be very deadly. And right now, it is a symptom of the imbalance of our climate, right? There is a lot of fire. But either way, like fire is a very central thing to our communities. And within that, it is an energy. And so autonomy, our sovereignty, our fire is this ever-giving energy, right? And it gives into community, and community feeds into it. It gives into who we are, and who we are feeds into it, right? And there's other things that really impact what is our autonomy, our sovereignty. Um, and so the way that we've understood this is things that, our principles that our communities rely on, that we rely on, so acceptance, accountability, respect, responsibility. These are things that we uplift and are integral to our work, right? We hold these as our principles. And then also empowerment, experience, and mentorship. We are constantly supporting these things within our programming, within our conversations and everything that we do, because they're what feeds our growth as community and as individuals. And how we practice them are the ways in which we support autonomy through food and seed sovereignty, establishing kinship, which is relationship building, land access, economic opportunity, and culturally relevant, affordable, holistic grassroots wellness support. And we are starting to reframe a lot of this work right now into a different system, because you can go to the next screen, Gloria, because of the growth that we are having in our organization. But at its basis, what we do is revolves around the Kane, which is a Taino word for our house of knowledge. So they are literal structures, and also metaphorical and figurative understandings. Our kunuko is our plot where we grow our food. So another word for kunuko is milpa. But these are the basis of community, right? And so everything in our programs is reflected in those two very important aspects of our community as Tainos, our kunuko and our kane. Next slide, please. And so this year, which magically we are already, like nearly, like we're halfway through it. Like our fiscal year starts in March, and then, the calendar year starts in January, and then, in our communities we have also many different types of New Year's. So I'm just like, we're at the change of the season. It's September already, like winter is approaching, right? Um, and so the goals that we have for this year is to we really have dived into what is our Semillistas cultural arts program. Um, and so I will share our Instagram information in the chat, when I'm finished speaking. But it is Instagram, it's just TCIKH on all of our social media. But we just officially launched what is our Semillistas program and project. And we're very, very proud of our work. And it is basically representative of our traditional Indigenous medicine and our documentation of our cultural life ways, right? And the way documentation works is not just like what people think of as documentation, like writing or, documentary is, but documentation also means like art now, you know, and the fact that everything is still living, nothing is in the past in that sense, or things in the past, but everything is continuing. Um, and this logo here for Semillistas, we were able to have a very awesome competition type of event in the last year where we, had a call for artwork and artists. And so this logo was created specifically for TSIC from a Two-Spirit Chicano woman from Yanaguana, San Antonio, Texas. Her name is Red Rojas. And this artwork is very beautiful. So there's more about that on our social media and on our website. Another goal of ours that we just officially started this week is working towards our 501(c)(3) and filing our nonprofit status. And so TSIC will continue in a couple of different ways. So our Semillistas program will still continue actually as a fiscally sponsored project. And our land-based programming is going to become a 501(c)(3) agricultural conservation land trust because within the last year as well, our organization was written into somebody's will. And so we have officially received land, and we've had to spend a lot of time figuring out what that looks like for us as people who are Indigenous and also not from Haudenosaunee territory. So how do we also recognize and create access for our Haudenosaunee relatives in a good way, right? While understanding the complexities of what it means to have unceded territory, be constantly dealing with legal fights around treaties and land in trust, right? That's a whole other conversation. So that's very exciting for us. And a lot of our agricultural work right now is more focused on working on land management planning, TEK trainings, and ways to be able to essentially do land conservation work. So we're not just growing food, we're also looking at how we maintain, properties over a long period of time and creating long-term strategies for that. We are also building out our reproductive justice advocacy and support work. So TSIC offers direct services around traditional birth work support, which looks like sometimes just talking with people about their experiences and you know, um, understanding that sometimes our hormonal issues are coming from a place that is emotional, right? Because our endocrine system is very complex. And also, starting in January, we'll be offering a curriculum of different classes and workshops around fertility, around our menstrual cycles, around what conscious conception looks like, and what embodied consent looks like, you know, a lot of these questions, and understanding that there isn't a lot of answers readily available in our communities. And otherwise, our goal this year is to constantly be increasing our capacity and fundraising, because this work is never ending and just ever expanding. Next slide. And so these are just some photos of our work, right? So we are lucky to have a constant relationship with our Indigenous communities on the islands. And so on the far right, our traditional weaving through the fibers that exist in nature in the island of Cuba to make our traditional casabe bread. And so every year we like to, it doesn't happen every year. We do travel to Cuba and we receive a lot of knowledge and information and practice from our Indigenous relatives there and how they are, you know, practicing their sovereignty and continuing our ancestral traditions. In the middle here, at the top is ancestral tobacco plants. So we did a really cool tobacco growing project and it was really cool. And we learned a lot about our climate, and there was not a lot of seeds that were saved because these are very long season plants. But we were able to acquire seeds from the island of Puerto Rico and Cuba. And this was our beautiful seed crop, right? This is how many plants we got, and we barely got any seed from it, which happens, right? Below it is some ancestral rare varieties of corn. We were growing Oaxaca corn, Oaxaca green corn, and Lenca Maya corn, and we were able to receive seed from both of these corn plants. And so we do have success as well in some of our grow outs of rare seed varieties in different climates, which creates further security for our seeds. And then on the far left, we have our late co-founder, Joe Soto, giving a talk on healing and intergenerational trauma in New York City a few years ago. So this is just some photos of the work that we do. Next slide. So, if you want to get in touch with us, our email is at info@tsic.org. And then for more specified inquiries, we have wombcare@tsic.org and landback@tsic.org. And I am the director and co-founder, Alexis Ramirez, and that is my personal email. Maya Soto, who could not be here today, is our program and communications coordinator, and that is her personal email. And we have one other as a part of our team. His name is Art Lopez, and he is our traditional ecological knowledge practitioner, because we are working on a lot of really cool projects and are constantly figuring out how to grow our teams and sustain our land. And there's many other parts of our work that we do as people we are constantly contracting to assist on our farm, you know, help with grow outs of other varieties of seeds as well. And our website is www.tsic.org. And yeah, feel free to post any questions in the chat. Whew,
That
but
was, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop share. And then if you could, Alexis, put your um, email in the chat, or put all the emails in the chat. So first, I just want to say, wow, like I almost have no words. Like, wow, like all of this information is so relevant and just beautiful. I mean, I really don't have any other word to say but beautiful. I think the one thing that really stuck with me is when you talked about ancestral foods awakening ancestral memory. That's like, you're talking like good stuff. And the connection between birth and seeds and land, like I had no idea about any of this. So this was all so enlightening and deep. And I am taken aback by the work that you do. And you are such a needed organization in this community, and we are so thankful for your work, and we see your work, and we honor and we value your work and what you bring to this community. But really quick, I know we're way past our time, but this is just such an important topic, and I understand if people need to go, it's totally fine. But it looks like everybody's still with us, so everybody is still interested in this topic. But we are going to just really quick take some questions. Um, let's see, we have one from Lori. Please talk more about the Indigenous birth practices you support. And do you collaborate with Ujista? Ujista, I don't know if I said that right. And then the third part of the question is, how can volunteers engage with your work? And I think that's really important too. And for you to talk about how people can help support your work, because you are a small grassroots organization who is functioning on a very tiny, teensy budget, right? And so any type of support, financial or time, donating your time, talent, and treasure to the organization would be super helpful. So yeah. So
Awesome.
the first part of the question, your Indigenous birth practices.
Yeah, so Indigenous birth practices, that's like a whole, we could do a whole other talk on that, right? Um, but in short, Indigenous birth practices mean we support, birth autonomy. We want people to be able to carry life the way that they would like to. And this means a whole lot of things, right? Directly, what we have done in the past is we have literally supported families of farm workers in the region who don't have access to a lot of care that they need, because a lot of them come from undocumented communities that don't speak English. And a lot of them are looking for a specific type of culturally sensitive care that a lot of people don't have a lot of understanding of. And also, they don't trust a lot of people because of their status, right? So we have directly supported them. We can go to their homes. We have welcomed them into our spaces to assist them in the ways that they need it. And sometimes this just looks like, abdominal massage. Sometimes they're looking for herbs. Sometimes they need help just advocating through the medical system, right? Attending some of their appointments. And sometimes this means active support, like in hospitals, right? Because oftentimes there's a huge language barrier. And in the Ithaca region itself, there's I think maybe one other person who is fluent in Spanish that is a birth care like service support person. I don't think there is any even like real bilingual care in Ithaca. There might be in Cortland, and that's all I'm aware of, right? So that in itself, like, is also acknowledging that a lot of our indigenous communities do come from south of the colonial border, that may look like Latinos or Hispanics and be within that community because that might be how they identify as well, but their practices comes from a more ancestral and indigenous and earth-based way of practice. And so there's a lot of blurry lines here between, how we identify and how we live and how that reflects into the community. Um, and as far as collaborations with Ogista, we actually have not yet like really collaborated like on anything. They have come to our events to event, we invite them to be a part of the events that we have. And while there is no true exact overlap of the programs we offer, there's a lot of like complementary things. So when they are doing things, we have, we support the work that they do. And one of their board members is like a very, very close relative to us as well. So it's interesting, right? We know each other and support each other very much so in our personal lives, and also our work is just like, I think we're all very maybe overwhelmed by everything that we do. We're just like, here, we're doing this event, like if you want to come, like come be here, like uplift the work we're doing, and like we're in this together. So sometimes collaborations just really look like like real, like actual moral support, right? Because the reality is when it comes to Indigenous sovereignty, autonomy, and practice, there's not enough of us really doing it. So it's hard. It's really hard. Um, and volunteers, we love volunteers, and right now a lot of what we'll be looking for is we are going to be really needing a lot of assistance with development, organizational development, as well as assistance with fundraising. While we have a very small budget, our hope has been this year, and it just feels like an ever like ever difficult thing to have real public fundraising campaigns. And so that is really our big weakness and where we need the most support. So if anybody wants to support us, feel free to email me, Maya, or the info at or go to our website and just figure it out how to contact us. It's really very few of us answering these inquiries. But our biggest need for support right now is will be to uplift public fundraising essentially, and social media. Just simple, so like stuff like that for us is really helpful because as you've seen, like we're doing a lot. It's just the community doesn't know everything that we're doing, and it's because our priority is doing the work and not necessarily posting about it, right? So while we are active in the Ithaca community, we're also working on projects in San Antonio, Texas. We're working on establishing some of this work in Puerto Rico, which is, one of our ancestral homelands. And we attend a lot of trainings to be able to constantly be informing what we're doing and networking, and continuing to educate ourselves because this is an ever, yeah, we're always growing.
Yes. I think that is very, very evident that you are well versed and competent, and you just are a wealth of information, and we are so thankful for that. But you posted your emails, Maya's email, and then the info at, you have information about their social media. And I asked that you all dig deep and figure out how you can help support this organization, um, because it's an organization that needs to stay in Tompkins County. And we all benefit from it, whether you feel it personally or not. We all benefit from your organization, Alexis. We are so thankful for what you do. To everyone, like, thank you so much for joining us. I am so sorry we are over time, but listen, this is important information. And I thoroughly enjoyed the time we had together. Special thank you to you, Alexis, for all of your valuable insights. You are a wealth of knowledge and information, and you do it with such grace and passion. And you truly, truly inspire us. And we're grateful for the work that you do to uplift our community, not just the Indigenous community, but everyone. To all of our guests joining and to our guests watching the recording, your presence and your engagement are what make these gatherings so special and important to me. Anyway, and I say it all the time, you guys, if you are a fellow Let's Talker, like you always hear me say, this is the best part of my job. And it is. I love it. Together we learn, we grow. And when we learn and we grow, we can make a difference. So thank you again for watching. This will be up on our website. The recording will be up with our other recordings. We look forward to seeing everyone in the future. And then a shameless plug, we are doing a site visit with Alexis on Friday. So right now we're working out the location it will be at. But if you want to continue this conversation and talk more to Alexis, because I can talk to Alexis forever, and I talk forever, everyone who knows me. But if you want to join the conversation, learn a little bit more and have that more intimate and personal time with Alexis, please email me. I put my email in the chat, gcoicou@cftompkins.org, and then I'll give you the details on our Friday site visit. So it's this Friday at 12 p.m. Again, thank you all so much for joining. Alexis, I love you. You're amazing. I love you all. Caitlin, you are a champ for staying on camera this whole time. I appreciate you. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Enjoy the sun. Take care. It's not raining right now. And we'll see you all soon. Take care, everyone.